Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kat. I am the Nurse Flipper. If this is your first time here, I am a online reseller. I have sold over 100,000 the last 2 years over on eBay, as well as some on Poshmark, Mercari, and Facebook. So today what I am going to do are go over some of my best tips for navigating the thrift store. So if you're new, even if you're experienced, there might be some tips in here that you don't know that are my ways of navigating a thrift store, be it Goodwill or a small thrift store, to find things to flip for profit. And I also reached out to my YouTube and Instagram friends and asked for their tips as well. So this video is going to have over 25 tips for you to find things in the thrift store to flip for a profit. So let's go. So I am going to go over some of my own personal tips first, and then I'm going to share with you my YouTube and Instagram friends tips as well. My first and I think biggest tip is to look on the outside of the store, as well as if they have a marquee sign, and look for sales. Also, some of them put little poster boards up as soon as you walk in the store, because once you get in that store and you're looking at merchandise, it might make a big difference if it's 50% off. And if you don't pay attention to if they're having a sale or not, you're not going to know. So you could be passing over some items that would be great pickups because you don't know they're on sale. I myself have made this mistake. Some stores put it in kind of out of the way places. So if you don't see a sign, you also could ask the person at the counter, hey, are you doing any sales today? And that way you know if the merchandise is on sale, how much it's on sale for, and if it's whether picking up for a profit. Now, for me, I typically go for what I like first. So for me, I like vintage linens, I like collectibles, I like housewares. I tend to go to those places first. And I will tell you, at most of my thrift stores, this is kind of the outer perimeter. So I will go along the outside, look at what I like and what I typically sell, because I'm kind of fresh going into that thrift store. And I want to find stuff that I like before looking at other stuff. Now, if you've been watching me, you know I sell everything. I do not limit myself to anything, honestly. I will sell anything that will make a profit. So for me, I go first towards, again, those linens, housewares, collectibles. But after I am done with that, I definitely look at the clothing, especially a lot of the thrift stores around me have dollar clothing. So I do go to the clothing. I don't necessarily go through all of it. I will kind of browse the aisles, and if something catches my eye, whether it be bright and a pattern or whether it looks really high quality, then I will further investigate it. And I also will go to toys. I don't know a bunch about toys, so that's another section for me. I just go and see if anything stands out to me. However, if you are a toy reseller, that might be where you want to go first, just so you can look at that with kind of a fresh mind. You aren't worn out from looking at things in the thrift store, and you might find some items to flip. Next is going to be to look high and low. There are a lot of stores that put stuff way above my head level, and if you don't look up there, you're not going to find them. And the same thing goes for low. There are also a lot of really low shelves that stuff gets overlooked quite a bit. And if you are paying attention, kind of scanning up and down these shelves, that is how you will find stuff that other people who are just kind of cruising through might have overlooked. And a few of my thrift stores here also love to throw stuff in totes and bins. Sometimes you have to dig, even if it's not at the technical bins. A lot of thrift stores have totes filled with stuff. Don't be afraid to get in there, dig through it, and see what you can find to flip for a profit. You want to look over everything too. this is not really navigating, but this is something that will help you not make bad buys. You want to overlook those clothing, kind of give them a second over before you're checking out. Make sure there are no stains, no rips, anything like that that might prevent you from being able to make a profit on that item. And sometimes if they're very small, I do still pick them up, but I want to make sure I'm aware of that and look at the price of that item compared to what I would make for it. Now, I'll real quick go over how I comp pricing, and then I got a ton of tips. So I would like to share all of them with you. Some of them are repetitive, but I feel like if people are repeating this, then the tip warrants repeating. So when you're in the thrift store, if you have signal, the problem with a lot of my thrift stores, and I think I've heard with a lot of other people's thrift stores, is that you don't have a phone signal, so you can't comp. And how I comp 99% of the time is actually on the eBay app. So I search for the item, and then you can click filter, click sold, and see, are there more of this item selling than are listed? Is it about equal? Is there only 10 sold and 100 listed? If there are 10 sold and 100 listed, that is an item that I would put right back on the shelves. And you want to make sure you look at this if you have the capability. So that is my main tips. I was going to write more, and then I posted and asked for tips from my friends, and I think they've pretty much covered everything I would say. So let's go ahead and get started with the tips for my friends. I am going to start first with tips for my YouTube friends, and then we will go on to Instagram. All right, so Polly B. Picker over on YouTube says, glass, hard goods, electronics, shoes, clothing, and then other. If I am at Goodwill, I hit the green and yellow aisles first as I collect Vaseline and uranium glass. He also said, thanks for all the great content. Keep it up. So Polly, thanks so much. So as far as that, I unfortunately do not have any thrift stores that have these amazing color-coded aisles. I saw one up when I was in Pennsylvania, and if you have one, Polly's tip is a great one, especially if you're somebody who is looking for glass and collectibles. The green aisle is a great place to find that uranium and depression glass, and it glows. So if there's something particular and you do have those stores that are color-coded, hit those colors that you know you always find stuff that is great for resale first, then go back to the others. Next is a tip from Kathy Eller on YouTube. She says, when I go in, I always scan the store. Wherever there were a lot of people, I head in the other direction. Sometimes I go scan books and wait until crowds leave an area before I move in. I start with Christmas because it's had its own place all the time, and then I go around the outside of the store. Then I head for the middle section. The middle area in my store is narrow, so I dive in when no one is around. So that is an absolutely great tip. So Kathy goes around the outside like I tend to do, and I stay away from the crowds whenever possible as well. I like my personal space. I am not big on having people all in my area. So I also will switch up my plan in a thrift store if there are a ton of people and I am going where they are not as well. And then BJ Harrison says, I first head to the art section and look for real paintings, not prints. So this goes back to what you sell. So I'm assuming BJ sells a lot of art. I actually have done very well with art as well. I've done well with bird prints, and I have also done well with real paintings. So BJ is probably selling a lot of art. That is why BJ goes first to the art section. So if you have a niche and you're concentrating on one area, that of course is the first area that you want to hit. All right, Mo over at Reseller Niche on YouTube, and he does have a channel, left us some good advice. Mo says, I would say that you need to break things down by what you sell the most of in your store and head for those items first. For eBay, I'm basically a half clothing and the other half is collectibles. So I start with the collectible section if they have one or glass counters. After that, depending on the store, I move through every hard goods section first, and then I hit the clothing last. I usually swing by the glass counters once again before I leave. So Mo is checking those glass counters and glass cases first, and then he's also going back and looking at them again before he leaves. And he says he does have a few store where he knows when they bring out new bins, and in that case, he hits those first. So if you get to know your thrift store and know when they are bringing out that merchandise, that of course is going to be a great time to hit it where you are the first one looking through that merchandise. Mo also says he has one last tip for us. If he's running out of time and hasn't looked at clothing yet, and he doesn't have time to do a good thorough run through everything in the rack, he says he usually looks at the beginning and the ends of racks. He says he has noticed that with thrift stores, the employees will stock the front or the back because it's easier to make space that way. Mo, that is a great tip, and that is not something I have personally thought of. So thank you so much for sharing your tips, Mo, and the rest of you. And we've still got a lot more tips to go. I think this is super important because you're getting tips from people who sell different things, and they're also all around the country. Some of them might be in other countries, and they're giving us tips for their area. So take what you can from this video and make your own kind of route or routine in the thrift stores. I'm so thankful that all of these people have given us tips. So let's get back to some more. All right, Holly Long says, I'm a big toy seller, so I always go to the toy section first. Look for any new old stock toys. So that means older toys that are still new in the box. Those do typically sell very well. Also, vintage toys, bag lots, or plush. If you have a thrift store that does bag lots and throws a ton of stuff in a bag and it's cheap, I always look in those bags to see if there's one item that will pay for the whole lot, and then everything else will be profit. So definitely keep an eye out for those that have bag lots. Now, she says from there, she does shoes, women, men's, and kids, and then she goes all through the collectibles and hard goods, almost always skipping the art and book section. She says she will check in the clothing if she has time and is feeling into them. So I want to point out, BJ just said art's the first place that BJ goes, but Holly is saying she skips it. So you want to make sure you're getting stuff that you like enough to photograph to list it on eBay or another platform for resale. So Holly, those are great tips. Your secondhand roses on eBay says, I ask the employees when they stock. They will tell you. So I personally have not used this because my time frame to go thrifting is very small, and I do not have the luxury of kind of timing when I am going there. So I can't time it around when they are bringing out new bins. But this is a great tip if you're able to go, like some stores stock early in the morning. So if you're the first person there, other ones put them out throughout the day. Maybe they're putting them out midday, or their person who may stuff out is coming in at 3 in the afternoon every day. Your secondhand roses eBay has a really great point. If you are able to go at different times during the day, definitely ask those employees and find out when they are restocking so you could try to be there when new stuff comes out. Now, Leona says, if there are people bringing things out, I watch the door they come out of. That is another great thing you can do. If you know that they are coming out pretty frequently out of a door, and you can kind of camp out or look at something that's pretty close to that door, then again, you can be the first person that looks through that bin when it comes out the door. Now, I will tell you, some thrift stores have a policy that you can't look through their bin until it's on the shelves. So make sure that that is not the case, because you definitely don't want to get in trouble at the thrift store. He's over at Fatbirds Finds on YouTube said, I really like the linen section of a thrift store. It seems to be the most reasonably priced. You can find Afghans, tablecloths, vintage towels, and I have even found vintage scarves hanging there. And usually one low price per category. Of course, be sure to watch for Pendleton wool blankets. I agree with Fatbird's finds. Vintage linens are in right now. I made almost $100 profit on a dollar tablecloth this past week. Go and check the linens. And if you aren't familiar, watch some of the YouTubers that sell vintage linens. Mine are kind of all mixed in. I don't do category videos, but if you find people who are selling vintage linens, definitely check them out. Good friend Steve-O Resell says, I look at the front desk first to see what's in there. Then I go straight to the golf clubs. I'll pass the shoes, but I still look. Then I go to electronics. After that, I look at books and DVDs. But before I leave, I look at everything one more time. That is a good point that I will say I don't really do. I feel like I probably should go back and take a second pass at everything, because chances are the first time you go through, if you're kind of rushing, you're gonna miss stuff. So if you have time to kind of sweep through the whole store again, do a second pass by, you might find some stuff that you missed the first time. And I, again, am going to point out, all of these sellers' tips depend on what they are selling. And I also look at the front cases and see what's in there. A lot of people assume that the stuff in the case is expensive, but I have found that that really is not often the case. Sometimes it might be small items they are worried about theft, and other ones they just put them in there because they think they're popular brands, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those prices are high. So that is the end of my YouTube comments, but we still have Instagram friend tips coming up. To all of you that commented on that post on YouTube, thank you so much for sharing your tips with me. I appreciate it. Let's go over to Instagram tips. Throwback Threads over on Instagram. Throwback Thread 66 says, I always start in shoes, men's, women's, then kids and infants. Then I move to the kitchen wall and knickknacks, then electronics, and then clothes. At the bins, I go straight to the shoes. So you might have to make a little different plan depending on what thrift store you're going to. If you do go to the Goodwill bins, then you kind of have to process that and figure out your own way. For me at the Goodwill bins, I tend to go look at the glass first if they have it, and then I will go to the hard goods section, and then I go to the shoes, and last I will go to the clothing items. I haven't been to the bins in over a year, but when I have found a ton of good items that are linen in the clothing bins. And people typically are not looking for linen when they're at the bins. So if you're a bin shopper, that's a good tip for you. Keep an eye out for I would like to take just a moment to say I really appreciate you watching me. It really does mean a lot. Take a second, hit that thumbs up, leave me a comment below to let me know what you think. And definitely subscribe if you have not subscribed. I really do appreciate you watching. So let's get back to the video. And then the Thrifty Nurse says, don't be scared of big items or fragile stuff. Sometimes things are worth more parted out. Even if it's broken or flawed, it could be sold for parts and still be valuable. My good friend Kevin at Commonwealth Picker, I think, is the one you hear, when in doubt, part it out. And you are going to hear a thrift tip from Kevin coming up here shortly. So she says, don't pass on out of season stuff, especially Christmas. It sells all year. I usually go around the perimeter of the store first, and then I do the racks and bin, and then the center because it takes longer. So doing the perimeter of the store seems to be a pretty popular tip, and she has a great point here. Your holiday stuff sells year round. Do not list, or don't pick up Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's. Any of that stuff is probably collectible, and some people look for it year round. So if you can get it out of season, you might be able to get it cheap, and it can still bring a really, really good profit. Also, clothing, jackets, right now shorts. So it might be cold or hot wherever you are, but somewhere in the world, it is the opposite. Somebody might be taking a vacation. So even if it's 30 degrees where you are, somebody could be going to Jamaica or the Bahamas and looking for some vacation clothes. So don't pass up those out of season clothes if they are good brands either. And Tattooed Scavenger says, always look on the very bottom of the shelves and the top if they're high, which was one of my tips. But again, I am telling you what other people are saying as well, because these tips, some of them you're going to hear over and over, and I really want them to hit home. And then go to Mimi's house. Says, one of the most helpful things I've found that helps me navigate a thrift store happens before I ever go to the store. That is researching, learning marks, following people in some of the various forums, and really learning what kind of things are moving and have value. For example, she's saying, my recent live with high profit items over $40 was extremely helpful. So she likes to watch other thrifters' YouTube videos to see what they are picking up. So that way she has that knowledge in her head of what is selling right now, what other people that are reselling are picking up. She says you will learn tons, and I feel like this helps tremendously when I'm going to the thrift store. It helps to train my eye as I scan the shelves. So if you are watching my What Sold or any other What Sold or thrifting video, you're in the store looking through things and you can be like, oh, I just saw Kat sell that for $100. It's only $5. Let me grab it. Great tip, Amy. Cohen Style says, I usually start with my top sellers: shoes, coats, dresses, jeans, and then hard goods. Again, different sellers, different methods. It really depends on what you're selling as far as your plan for attacking the thrift store. My good friend Kevin over at Commonwealth Picker, Mr. When in Doubt Part It Out, says, I just wait until I see the nurse flipper and grab things out of her cart when she's not looking. So, don't take things out of my cart if you see me. Kevin, thanks for your tip. Verba's Vintage says, look high and low on the shelves. I have found a lot of low shelf inventory. I always go through the store several times. If they're restocking, I browse a bit longer to see what is going on the shelves. So pay attention, guys. Pay attention to what is going on. If they're bringing out racks of new stuff, hang around a little longer and see what they're bringing out. Linko says, these are very good tips being shared, and some are similar to mine. I like to create a shopping list of how much I need from a certain category, so that way I don't have too much or too little of a certain item. Check for flaws before looking up comps. So that is a great tip. And you're going to hear some people that have a little bit different method here coming up. I love my Tuesday night lives because you guys get opinions from 4 people. A lot of times they are completely different, and that is what these tips are giving you. So I also said check for stains, and Linko brings up a great point, and that is if you have too much of a certain category, maybe pass that category over. And for me, like with Afghans, if I have like 10 in stock, I'm not going to pick up any more. Also the same for plush. If I have a ton of plush here that hasn't sold, I'm probably going to be less interested in the plush category. Carlton Reseller says, I always go in the section that no one else is ever in. Again, those sections that people are neglecting oftentimes are ones that have hidden items for profit. If something catches your eye, look it up. I almost threw out some wicker baskets a couple years ago, and I'm like, let me just check these on eBay. Those flower gathering wicker baskets sold for $50 a piece in less than a month, and I was going to put them out at the side of the road. The Kitschy Cat says, don't get caught up in the little things right away. Do a quick sweep of the store first to see if anything jumps out at you. Chances are it'll also jump out at someone else too. Go back for a second, third, and possibly even fourth time for a more detailed look. This also allows time for new items to come out. So that is a great tip if you are at the store and you have time again to make a second, third, and fourth round. I don't do this very often, and honestly, I should at least make a second pass, because I did that when I was up in Pennsylvania with Dagny and Dale flipping Fiasco, and I did find more stuff on the second round that was there the first that I didn't see. So definitely go through a second time, and Kitschy Cat saying she even goes through a third and fourth. Vintage Vinny, who is commenting on my Instagram, but he also has a great YouTube channel, says expand your horizons, check out sections you wouldn't normally. I agree with Vinny. If you are really only doing clothes and your sales aren't where you want them to be, start checking out some other items. Check out the linens. Check out the collectibles. You need to do what you like, of course, and are going to want to list. And if you're making the sales you want and you're hitting your goals, then just go straight for whatever that main item you're doing. But if you're not getting the sales you want, you need to expand your horizons a little bit. Nursey Damansor, I hope I'm saying that right, says, I usually see people rush in and walk to a particular category. I can tell that they resell. Then they walk straight out again. I assume they would go to multiple thrift stores, so I assume they have a niche and know what to look for. So, like I just said, if you're making all the money you want or on clothing or on shoes and you're just going for those sections, do what's working for you. And she's correct. If I was only a clothing seller, I would be able to hit many more stores if I just went to clothing. I sell everything, so I am literally looking that thrift store from the front to the back, high and low, and seeing what I can find. Blessed One says, I go to the locked cabinets first. I also like to go through the bins that haven't been set on the shelves yet. Almost always have good luck in the bins. So that, again, that new stuff coming out, if you see them rolling it out and you're allowed, go look through the new stuff because nobody else has. Aqua Girl Vintage said, I put things that intrigue me in the cart while I sweep the store, and then I reevaluate them later. Too many people agonize over whether or not to take something and then it's gone. So I go on instinct. If it looks unusual or interesting to me, it's going in the cart. You can always put it back later. So that is something that works for her. It's not something that works for me, because I take so long in the thrift store going everywhere. If I put everything that caught my eye in the cart, I would end up with way too much stuff, and then I would have to dig back through it at the end to see if I wanted it. So that's not something that works for me, but that is what works for her. And she's right. If you're like, I might get it. Like if you guys watched my last thrifting video, there was an amazing bicycle plant holder up front, and I'm like, well, I'll see if it's still there when I get back. It was gone. So if you're one of those people that second guesses whether or not you should get stuff, this might be a great tip for you. Liberty Miller 76 says, always check the signs as you walk in to see if there are any discounts or special sales that day. If they have a customer club or a punch card system, sign up. Those discounts add up. So Liberty brought up my first tip again, which is check for those sales. But she also brought up a tip I forgot to mention, and that is if they have a punch club or a discount club, you need to ask them and join it. And I will tell you, probably about half of my thrift stores do. They either have a little card they punch, or they get your phone number and save it. And once you've spent a certain amount, you either get a dollar amount off or you get a discount. And she is right. Those discounts definitely add up. Hand Me Down Sue says, most of the time outside, for example, shoes, wears, decor shelves. Then I go to dresses, men's, tees, and women. Sometimes shelves, then clearance, and then the rest above. I wish my thrift stores had clearance sections. That would be amazing. So if your thrift store has a clearance section, definitely check that part out. And she said it depends on the layout of the store, but the outside is the most observed. So I go there before I go into the racks because they're more overlooked. And gold is tucked inside waiting to be found. Where the outside is in plain sight, and most times someone is going to walk out with something I would have grabbed had I been there first. That is a great tip. Cash's Closet says, I feel like it depends on the thrift store. Some stores in certain areas don't get good things in specific categories, but in other categories they get awesome stuff. I always check different stores and I always check different areas in all of the thrift stores I go to. One store I start in shoes, the other store I go to wares. You know what I mean? Yes, I do. So again, once you learn your thrift stores, you're going to learn what they typically get in good. And she's suggesting if you know what they get in good, go to those places first. If you know, hey, this store gets really amazing name brand clothing, or this store always has awesome glass, go there first and then go to the other stuff. Mora Sales 1982 says, I believe once you've been doing this for a while, you develop an eye for things. So I do a quick sweep, also glance around, pick up things that look unique, and then I go around again. I take my time to look through, and lastly, I go to men's clothing, which sells for me better. I have to admit, I am more drawn to picking up men's clothing as well. I just feel like there's less brands to learn versus women's clothing. And I really need to start looking more at women's clothing because I have so many thrifts around me that have dollar clothes. I think I'm probably passing up some money, but she has a really good point. You're going to learn as time goes by what sells well for you and what you want to list. So once you develop that eye, you can kind of make a method or a plan to attack those thrift stores. JWJ4H says, go with a plan and plan your time accordingly. If your inventory needs more clothes, head to the clothes. If you're in search of books, hit books. Fill your cart with anything of interest and weed out later. This keeps the finding momentum going, and then you can stop later to check comps or whatever else at the end. I also think going sometimes just to browse and learn is a great plan. I try to go in sometimes to truly window shop and spend time getting a feel for things and learn more about them. So again, that's another person saying they put stuff in their cart and they check it after, which I personally do not do, but it obviously is working for them. So that might work for you as well. I can't go to the thrift store and window shop. So JWJ, I give you props for that. I do go to the antique stores to try and learn higher dollar items and see kind of what's in style at the antique mall. But you could also do this at a thrift store. If you're not wanting to add to your inventory, you can go look at clothing, different brands if you want to approach clothing, or go look into glassware or china and look up brands and look at it as a learning experience. That is the end of my tips. Again, to all of you who commented on YouTube and Instagram, thank you so much for sharing with everybody. I greatly appreciate it. To those of you who have watched, I really hope this is helpful for you and that you got some tips out of it. I appreciate you guys watching. Tomorrow is Monday. I will be doing, of course, my big weekend what sold video tomorrow. And then Tuesday night, I am going to have a special co-host, my good friend Dale Flippin' Fiasco, along with special guests. Both guys have been on my show before. They are both amazing. And that is Dave Tesla Picker and Dom over at Primetime Treasure Hunter. Both of these guys are amazing, as well as my good friend Dale. So come out Tuesday night, hang out, have fun on the chat. We are live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And watch tomorrow evening for a good what sold. I have about 600 going out on eBay thus far, which is a little bit lower. But there are some great items. And I have some amazing sales that came from the other platforms. The other platforms have been going crazy for me this weekend. So it's going to be another great what sold tomorrow. I appreciate you guys watching. I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.